So let's create a new composition, and here what I'm going to do is I have these PNG files. um, up- I have this PNG file of this cat and this bird. I'm going to import them and I'm going to drag them into my composition. Now let's actually, I don't need 12 second, let's make it 6 second. And now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select, so let's hide this layer. I'm going to select the cat layer, and in the layer panel, layer menu, uh, we have this option called auto trace. So I'm going to select auto trace, and I'm not going to change any of this thing. I'm just going to hit by the way, if you have some animation in PNG, then also you can create a um, vector outlines out of that rendering. So right now we have a single frame, and I'm going to just hit OK, and it will, what it will do is it will create a vector outline of that particular layer. So I think there's Kochi. I think if I just hit M, and if I delete this one, and layer and auto trace, I can create it in a, apply to a new layer. That option I'm going to turn on, and now if I hit OK, so it will create a new solid layer, and on top of it, it will create a mask of the shape of the cat. And again, I'm gonna do the same thing with the bird layer, and I'm going to select the bird layer, and I'm going to go to the auto trace option, apply to a new layer. I'm going to hit OK. So now we have two solid layers containing two different shapes, one of the cat, another is of the bird. Now these both layers are vector layers, so these are scale independent, so I can increase the scale. Okay, so last time I was using this composition settings for Vivek's project. So 1920 by 1920 by 1010. And so what I'm going to do is, now all we need to do, either we can create a new solid layer, or what I can do is, let's create a new solid layer, and on this layer I'm going to take I'm going to select the cat layer, and I'm going to copy the mask path, or the mask, the same thing. I'm going to copy, hit Control C. So by selecting the mask one, I'm going to hit Control C, and I'm going to go to the dark one, this solid layer, and I'm going to paste it here. So now I have copied the mask information from this layer to this new solid layer, and again if I hit M, it will show us the mask path, and I will just turn on this option, which is the mask path. Now as you know, I can actually animate the mask path. So if I make any kind of change, it will actually animate between these two keyframes. So actually the same thing I'm going to do. So I'm going to turn off this layer, and I'm going to select the bird layer, and I'm going to hit the M again, and in this layer it have created two paths, one for the outer shape, and another for the inner, this eye area, in hopefully subtract different point. Anyway, so I'm just going to copy the mask one. So I'm going to go to this mask path option, and I'm going to hit copy, and then I'm going to select the mask path option in the new gray layer, and I'm going to hit Control V paste. So it is going to create a new mask path. okay, on the mask 1 layer. So it's just changing the mask path, that's why it's creating a new keyframe. So what actually happening here is, right now it is blending these two shapes. Now the blending is not going to be that much good, because the change is quite a lot. Completely two different shapes are getting morphed together, but you have this option and you can actually use this feature creatively. If you have something similar and you want a loop type of animation between two shapes, you can do that. Okay, so this option is there. Okay, chalo. The next thing we are going to see is motion tracking. So let's actually import a new this footage, and let's double click on the to open the footage in layer footage panel, and find the in point and out point of the footage. So maybe this is the in point, and this is, maybe let's say this is going to be the out point till the end. So I'm going to drag, after setting the in and out point, I'm going to drag this footage on top of the new create window icon, new create composition icon, and it's already says stabilize and tracking. So now we have this footage, a shaky footage. Now we want to do two things. One thing that could be stabilizing the movement of the footage, and another thing is, let's say we want to put something on this footage that can be a thought bubble, that can be an element, that can be any animated character or whatever it is, but that should match the movement of the footage, right? I mean that particular, that layer of maybe animation or still frame, whatever it is, that should that should match the movement of the camera also. So these are the two things that we are going to figure out how to do it. So let's start with stabilizing a footage, how you can stabilize a footage. And there is two way to do it. One is very conventional way of doing it, which is using the stabilization feature in After Effects, and so that's what we are going to check out first. So let's turn on from the window menu, let's turn on the uh, tracker window, and let's add this window here. Okay, so this is the tracker window, um, and after selecting the layer, what I can do, I can click on the option called stabilize motion. So these are the two options that we have, warp stabilizer and stabilize motion. So the first thing we are going to check is this stabilize motion, and when we click on this icon, what happens is we are no longer in the composition panel, composition window, we are in the layer window, and here one tracking point is given to us. And I'm going to let's say this is I mean when you have only one tracking point, that means it is going to track the position only. Let's say in this footage we have a lot of as it is a hand movement, we have a lot of rotation also. So you can turn on the rotation and also the scaling. Not I'm not going to turn on the scaling as of now. I'm just going to track the rotation also with the position. So let's zoom in, and the fast tracking point I'm going to say it is, so let's make it full resolution. And the for the tracking points, two things that you need to be aware of, that After Effects tracks footages based on the color or RGB value or color contrast value. So you select one point where you have enough contrast variation in your in the tracking point pixels. So let's say in this area we have enough variation, we have some darker colors and some lighter colors also. So I'm going to select this area at first. Now the first window, this rectangular box, this is basically to determine how many pixels that I want to track. So these pixels under this rectangular shape, is going to be the pixels that I am going to track for each and every frame. So After Effects is basically is going to track before and after footages of these many pixels for each and every frames, and try to calculate the changes of the position and rotation. And the second this rectangular region is in how many in surface, I mean in which surface this movement is going to be, I mean for each and every frame, how many movement is going to be for this particular area. So that is the region of what you can say, what is it, region of expansion, whatever it is. So the second region, and make sure that you don't expand these regions quite too much, because that will slow down your computer, because each and every time After Effects have to read all these pixels. So the first tracking point is somewhere here, and I'm going to do the same with the second tracking point. So the first option is to find a clear contrast pixels, and that can be a motion track. A lot of the time you see some kind of plus or cross type of icon in green screen footages. Those are basically motion tracking points. So in this case it would have been better if I had some motion tracking points here. That could be a black tape type of thing that I can use it for motion tracking later on, but as I don't have anything, I'm just selecting this contrast area. And the second motion tracking point will be somewhere, and that's bring us to our second point. Not only that point have to be a contrast area, also it have some point it have to be that which is visible throughout the entire footage. So if any point, let's say this area, is getting obstructed by the hand, so when this hand is gonna come, After Effects is not gonna be able to find the similarities between previous and after and before frames. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to search some areas which is always visible to our camera, maybe here or here. Now I'm not going to choose any pixels which is in this wall, because in Z space it's actually in different direction, right? So the kind of rotation and movement is going to happen in this surface is not going to be the same here, because there is some perspective is going on in this area. So I'm going to choose a flat surface, and let's say this area, and it's not getting obstructed by our characters. So maybe it will be this area. Okay, so now I'm going to track the motion, and now all I have to do is this button. These buttons are for track analyze forward, or track forward, or track backward, and I can track it frame by frame like this, and you can see what is happening. For frame by frame, it is actually capturing the information and creating a keyframe information as a tracking data. So now I'm just going to, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit the track forward button, and it automatically it will calculate the tracking data for us. So oh my god, होगा क्या क्या हुआ? हो रहा है? So this is the tracking information. All the camera movements are there. So now what we have to do is this thing is very essential to remember, which is you have to go to the first frame, and then edit target. This option is the target is already this layer, so all you have to do is just hit apply, and obviously the X and Y, both of the information that we want to apply, and hit OK. Now we are back to the composition panel, you can see. So fit the window. Now what happened here is it have created a motion tracking data for us. So there is tracker 1, tracking point 1 and tracking point 2, and it have created few keyframes, and out of those keyframes it have created, when you have pressed the apply, uh, in kind of in a reverse engineering process, it have created these keyframes for anchor point, position, though the position keyframe is not have not been changed, and rotation. So the final result is something like this. So you have stabilized the footage, but in a reverse process it is actually moving the camera. Bahar ka grays are, as this camera is moving, so this information, the camera was moving in that left side, so that's why it's not changing the position of actual space, these things, the objects, so it's changing the camera in reverse, so that's why you are getting this transparency. Huh? That we cannot have. So to fix that, now the first mistake you have done in the shooting in a time of the production, so now to fix it, what you have to do is you have to scale the footage. So hit S, and this is what you have to do. Now you have a stable footage. Okay, a little bit scaling is there, but we haven't tracked the scaling, we have only tracked the rotation and the position. So that's how you can stabilize a footage by using stabilize motion option or motion stabilizer. Now the second feature, let's see, স্টিল একটুখানি নড়ছে এবং সেটা একটা গ্র্যাজুয়াল, অ্যাকচুয়ালি না, স্টিল একটুখানি নড়ছে ঠিকই, সেটা নড়ার কথা না, ওটা আমি এই যে পরের বার করেছি না, এই জন্য। তো এই পজিশনে unfortunately it have created a keyframe for the position, for that's why we have got some position that thing animation, so maybe okay, it should not be here. So হ্যাঁ, না না, স্কেলিংটা না, স্কেলিংয়ের সাথে সাথে একটা পজিশনে কিফ্রেম দিয়েছিলাম। সো নাও উই ডোন্ট হ্যাভ এনি position changing there. So now we've got a stabilized footage. So that's one way to stabilize a footage in After Effects. Now in few cases we are going to have a lot of shakes and camera movements which cannot be stabilized by this conventional way of stabilizing, because you may not have a particular tracking point, you may have, your camera might be moving a lot, let's say it's a pan shot, so nothing is stable there, but there is some handheld jerks are there that you don't want. So for those kind of footages we have this option called warp stabilizer. So let's create another composition, and you can get the warp stabilizer from here, also from here, warp stabilizer VFX, both are the same thing. So if I click on the warp stabilizer icon, then it will give us this thing which is analyzing in background, step 1 of 2. So it is analyzing this entire footage, and the stabilization is going to happen automatically, but we have few parameters and few advanced parameters which is basically for smooth, how much smoothness you want to add and all. Now we have this option for warp, subspace warp, and I mainly prefer to use position, scale and rotation instead of subspace warp, because what this warp option does is basically to fit the actual footage, it warps and bends the footage in our in this frame, so that doesn't give us a good result. So now you can see it's stabilizing the footage. This is the second step. Now we are in the warp step, substep warp mode. So let's see what it have done for us. So it's automatically have scaled up the footage a little bit, and you can see some kind of movement, though this we didn't have a lot of movement in this footage. So this might not be a perfect example, but it is just warping the footage, and some bend and unwanted movement is happening. You can see here. So it is trying its best to stabilize the footage, and so that's why I normally prefer position, scale and rotation option, and that will again stabilize the footage, and then we are going to get this option. So we have some camera movements, subtle camera movements, but if you have some jerks, some unwanted jerks in your camera, it stabilizes completely and gives us a smooth motion. You can change the smoothness amount from here, and I really don't have any perfect example for it right now, but I have shown you guys that one shot of my film where I have a pan through that building shot, old building shot. There I had a lot of camera jerks and I have used this kind of वो तो दूसरा ये मशीन में नहीं है, बहुत पहले दिखा था ना. हाँ, let's see that I have something else here or not. So यहाँ पे है, हाँ ये वाला में होगा. So एक्चुअली मेरे पास है शायद. माय प्रोजेक्ट वर्क